Farsight is coming on December the 28th, and if you start planning today, you can unlock him completely free with no packs, no wallet, just with smart preparation. And this is the exact type of planning we've used for Dante, Trajan and Lucius, and these events are only getting harder, so if you skip this preparation, you'll really feel it when the Philosophies of War hits. In this video, we'll break down what makes this event so brutal, we'll build a realistic plan around your current roster, and then I'll show you the fastest possible way to unlock Farsight, including the late game math nerd setups for the min-maxers amongst you. Philosophies of War is the 13th legendary event and the first chance to unlock Commander Farsight, our 6th Tau. The first run is 1 week starting December the 28th, with 2 more runs later, so even if you can't open him this time, everything you do now carries over. And just like Dante, Trajan and Lucius, this event is no joke. We've got Astra Militarum battles, eviscerating battles and blast battles, so for a lot of players this is really going to be a slog. And that's why we're going to build a proper plan instead of just winging it, so you can maximise your shard gains across all 3 runs and eventually get Farsight to the highest rarity possible. In general, I have a strategy for planning these which I'm going to share with you in depth now, and I'm going to throw a lot of character names at you, but don't panic. 2 things are important here. Firstly, this is late game planning. You don't need all of this tomorrow. And secondly, I have a Google Planner sheet linked in the description below that will help you plan this out with automatic picks for you based on your team, so you can just follow this video along at your own pace. With how hard these events have become, I honestly don't think you should walk into them with fewer than 22 Gold 1 characters, and more is better obviously. So your first big milestone is this: get a core group of about 22 of the best support and tank champions to Gold 1. And when I talk about the best champions, I'm really looking primarily for 3 things in my teams: healers, characters that reduce damage of other characters, and tanks. And with my recent learnings, I would really focus on leveling these champions up initially and then focusing on other characters. I now build my teams as much as I can with 2 healers, 2 tanks, and a damage reduction character. And although obviously I can't build these for every battle due to the restrictions, they always come in handy in all the tracks. So let me list all the champions I would consider from these categories, and then I'll narrow this list down a bit. And you can see that full list on screen now. And so that's an insane amount. But later, when you want to be reaching mythic level with the legendary event, you're going to need all of these at diamond level 3 or above in truth. However, to begin with, your initial list of 22 champions would look something like this. For Imperials, it's Isabella, Actis and Incisus as healers. It's Aesoth, Tangida and Atlacoya as damage reduction. And Titus, Marshal Dreer and Brother Butchered as tanks. For Xenos, it's Aleph Null and Hollin as healers. It's Tyrant Guard as the only damage reduction, and he is by far the best in the game at it. And then it's Revas, Snotflogga, Golgorts and Janezar as tanks. And for Chaos, Rotbone is the only Chaos healer, and Rask is the only Chaos damage reduction champ. So then I would be backing them up with Toth, Angrax, Maladis and Typhus as the main tanks. And so that's a lot to do for new players, but just remember that this is really late game content. There are 3 events per character, and they usually take around 11 months before they're all complete. So don't despair if you're just getting started, because in a year's time, you're going to be collecting all legendary event characters providing you focus on them. And if all of that is overwhelming, here's the simple version. If I had to recommend just 7 characters to focus on first, it would be these: Tyrant Guard, the best damage reduction in the game, full stop; Rotbone and Maladis, because as a pair they'll carry you deep into multiple events with their tankiness. It's Aleph Null and Revas, who are just huge value in so many different battles, and Tangida and Actis, which are fantastic support and survivability. And so push these to Diamond 3 as quickly as your account reasonably allows, because they're not just for legendary events, they can become the backbone of your entire Tacticus career. And if this kind of deep dive planning is helping, then hit subscribe, as I'm constantly building videos to help you save money while unlocking all the new characters as easily as possible. Now let's talk about the absolute fastest way to unlock Farsight, and this part is mainly for the more advanced players with stacked rosters. If you're newer, don't click away, because this will show you what to aim for long term, and then we'll circle back round to the more normal 5-character method. But to unlock a character, you need to get to 12,500 points without any purchases in the first event. And in most tracks, we're only going to use a few characters at Diamond 3 level, which is why it's more for the longer term players than for the newer ones. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is easy, especially with a lot of tracks only allowing you 3 characters, but it is mathematically possible. At least it will get you very far in the first event, and then you can spend the other events just making sure you get the characters far leveled as you can. And the team you need is as follows. For the Alpha track, collecting 180 points and covering the no Terminator armor, power damage and minimum 5 hits battles, it's Volk, Morgan Ra, Lucius and On-Shi. For the Beta track, collecting 180 points from the resilient and piercing damage battles, it's Abaddon, Carrion and Trajan. And then for the Gamma track, there are 2 good combinations here. Firstly, for 195 points, covering the minimum 1 hits and flying battles, it's Metanio, Neurothrope and Parasite of Mortrex. And then for 180 points and covering the no physical damage, blast and ranged battles, it's Brother Butchered, Isaac, Morven Vale, Shadow Sun, and Thaddeus Noble. And again, this is about maximizing your points with as few characters as possible to save tokens over multiple runs. It might not take you all the way, but it'll save you some tokens, and that is key. Now let's move to the Alpha track, and the playable factions are Chaos and Xenos, and the enemies are Admex. The battles are no Terminator armor for 65 points, power damage for 70 points, minimum 5 hits for 45 points, flame damage for 90 points, eviscerating damage for 105 points. And the most token efficient way is to split the track up as follows. It's eviscerating damage and no Terminator armor for 170 points, power damage and minimum 5 hits for 115 points, and then flame damage for 90 points. And if we start with the eviscerating damage and no Terminator armor for 170 points, there are 9 characters you can use here. It's Adamater, Azkor, Golgorts, Hazkul, Karn, Lucius, Chiron, Tank Smasher, and the Pattermine. And I would be narrowing that list down to Azkor, Golgorts, Karn, Tank Smasher, and the Pattermine. And the reason is simple, because most of the other characters are new, and so the likelihood of you having them leveled up quite high is pretty low. The only outlier here is Azkor, because he hasn't been seen in much modes, but as he has a terrifying trait, he will be able to absorb a bit of punishment. However, there's no damage reduction character, there's no healers in this team, and that means you're going to need to overlevel them in order to survive, especially as you come up against Akkadian mortar teams, tech priests, and electro priests later on in the track. It's going to be rough. For the power damage and minimum 5 hits battles for 115 points, there are only 5 characters here you can pick. It's On-Shi, Lucius, Morgan Ra, Toth, and Volt. And you'll notice again that there's no healers and no damage reduction, at least outside of On-Shi every 3 rounds. So for me, I would be leveling Lucius's passive up very high, then shoving him down someone's throat to kill them from within, while Toth and On-Shi would be protecting Morgan Ra and Volk for as long as possible. For the flame battle, there are 7 characters you can pick: Abraxas, Ahriman, Revas, Thaumachus, Toth, Volk, and Rask. And I would personally be going with Abraxas, Ahriman, Revas, Toth, and Rask. And look, no healers. And so I would just be sticking Revas and Toth up front, with the rest of them behind as long as possible. Maybe you're very lucky and you've got Revas's relic, and that's going to allow you to constantly go on Overwatch, which is an amazing boost to your team. So now you understand what I mean about a difficult track. And some of you will have seen my video about new tactics for legendary events. But if you haven't, then hit the link on screen, then come back and finish this one, or I can just tell you the quick short version of it, which is, once I'm starting to hit a wall within a track where I can't push any further, I'm going to switch to a much tougher team that will be able to push as far as it can. The reason is that I'm just trying to get the kill score and defeat all enemies in each stage far beyond where my normal teams could manage. And this works on all levels, whether you're a new player or an older player. And through this video, I'm going to call this my Mythic team, because I am personally trying to get Farsight at Mythic level by the end of his 3 events, and I've got no chance of doing it without this sort of team. So we're going to go with 2 healers, a damage reduction champion, and 2 tanks. And in the Alpha track, where I can pick Tyrant Guard, I would be playing something like this. It would be Nauseous Rotbone and Hollin as the healers, Tyrant Guard as the damage reduction champion, and then Angrax and Maladis as the tanks. Now there are a lot of possible tanks you could pick here because we are playing Chaos, so just pick your preferred choice in there. So to bring that all together, it looks like this. So if we move on to the beta track, we play as Imperial and Chaos, and the enemies are Tau Empire. The battles are Astra Militarum for 75 points, Bolter for 65 points, Resilient for 75 points, Piercing for 105 points, and Max 2 hits for 55 points. And the beta track is the least efficient with some very difficult battles, so we'll split it up as follows. We'll have the Bolter damage and Resilient for 140 points, Piercing for 105 points, Astra Militarum for 75 points, and then Max 2 hits for 55 points. So not a lot of tokens to be saved here. But starting with the Bolter damage and Resilient battles, it's simple because there's only 5 characters you can play. It's Abaddon, Lucian, Trajan, Tirith, and Yarrick. Now, there's no healers here, but again, at least they're a bit tankier than we've been playing. And as it's Tau that we're fighting, I would be trying to close them down as much as possible to trigger their close combat weakness trait. And I would be killing the Kroots as quickly as possible whenever those little fish faces appear, because they really hurt with their first attack, and this is due to their rapid assault trait. With a piercing damage battle, there are 10 to pick from. It's Abaddon, Dante, Harkin, Haskell, Incissus, Carrion, Karn, Tarvak, Trajan, and Ulf. And for me, I'd be narrowing that down to Dante, Incissus, Carrion, Karn, and Trajan. And finally, we have a healer to play with. For the rest, we should all be really trying to level them up for our guild raid teams, but it's really crazy that we are this far into the video and this is the first healer we've seen. So there isn't much tactics here. I would keep moving as a battle ball with Incissus in the middle and the rest of them rotating around it, keeping as many Tau engaged as possible. That way you keep their close combat weakness triggered, and then you just need to deal with those ugly fish-faced Kroots whenever they appear. Astra Militarum is next. And although there are 6 to pick from, which is Creed, Dreer, Cut, Sybil, Thaddeus, and Yarrick, I would actually be dropping Cut, because he's the least useful out of the lot of them, and what I would be doing is leveling Dreer as high as possible because of his innate healing and resilience. Then backing him up with Sybil, who will reduce his damage even further. It's actually quite a nice team if you can keep them alive. The others are just there as meat shields, so just make sure their spawns are counting as much as they can be. For max 2 hits, there are a ton of characters to pick from, and I would try and narrow it down to healers and a little bit of damage reduction. So I would go for Actus, Vitruvius, Tangida, Incissus, and Typhus personally. Tangida is the damage reduction for the mechanicals, along with adding Skitari to the field, and all of them would then be kept alive by Vitruvius and Actus. While Typhus is just a really tanky character with pretty good damage, and then he's going to be kept alive by Incissus. And for my mythic team, I would be taking Aesoth, Nicodemus, Isabella, Nauseous Rotbone, and Maladis, with maybe Dreer or Tirith as pocket picks. And this is just an incredibly ridiculously strong team. I would be using Nauseous Rotbone as an off-tank paladin style healer who's going to raise Maladis if he falls. Aesoth's going to provide a bit of damage reduction, and we all know the power of Isabella and Nicodemus as they have excellent passive heals. And so to bring that all together, it looks like this. Moving to the Gamma track, the playable factions are Imperial and Xenos, but you're not allowed to take any orcs, and that's because the enemies are orcs. The battles are no physical damage for 45 points, blast damage for 90 points, ranged for 45 points, minimum 1 hit for 90 points, and flying for 105 points. And the Gamma track's pretty cool because we can split it up as follows. We've got no physical damage, blast, and ranged all together for 180 points, and then flying for 105 points, and min 1 hits for 90 points. And starting off with the no physical damage, blast, and ranged battles, we can pick Brother Butchered, Isaac, Morven Vale, Shadow Sun, and Thaddeus Noble. And we've all fought the orcs long enough to know what we're going to be facing here. It's going to be wheat grots that multiply, orcs that throw grenades, and the real danger is the ranged tanks blasting from afar. Although this time they're joined by squigs, so it's going to get quite messy with those little boys in there. The best plan is to push hard to surround the spawning holes with your characters, because if you can completely surround one, then you only have to deal with characters coming from the other direction. And with this team specifically, Isaac can drop his spawns to run cover until you get there. Then Butchered and Valve should be up front, and the others blasting away from behind. Again, no healers, so you'll have to overlevel your troops. For the flying battle, there are 14 characters you can pick from, which I'm not going to fully list to save boring you, but I would choose Actus, Aleph Null, Revas, Thutmose, and Farsight, or Bellator, because obviously Farsight can't be picked in her first event, but later on it makes a lot of sense once you've opened her, because it gives you a full mechanical team with Actus and Aleph Null healing. Thutmose is probably going to be low level for everyone, and he's just going to die early. So I would just focus on getting Farsight and Revas up front, with Actus and Aleph Null healing them from behind. For the minimum 1 hits battle, there's another bunch you can pick from, but I would limit this down to Aesoth, Hollin, Incissus, Tangida, and Vitruvius. And this is another seriously strong team, with Tangida as the damage reduction for Vitruvius and his own Skitarii, while Vitruvius keeps them all alive. And then Incissus and Hollin can keep each other alive, as well as Aesoth, who also adds more damage reduction. And I would be really hoping to push quite far in this event with this team. Then for the Mythic team, I would be picking Aesoth, Dreer, Isabella, Nicodemus, and Tyrant Guard. And with this team, it's all about Tyrant Guard reducing as much damage as possible, then Aesoth reducing even more while staying alive with his Resilient trait. Dreer can heal himself and also has the Resilient trait, and that means Isabella and Nicodemus just need to keep on healing and staying alive as long as possible. A little tip for you here is that it is a really strong team, but you have to keep Isabella out of harm's way from the ranged tanks. Sometimes you're going to need to push the rest of the team ahead of Isabella up to attack the tanks, and then bring Isabella a little bit later in behind in order to stop her dying straight away. And so to bring that all together, it looks like this. And as always, that is an overwhelming amount of data, and you need so many different characters again. So let me summarize this for you to help you maximize your points and hopefully work out a plan to bring Farsight into your lineup. I'm going to start with the most important character in Legendary events. It's Tyrant Guard, because at later levels he deflects up to 2000 damage from enemies, and that is huge for survivability. Next, I'm going to look at the healers relevant to this event, and this time I would actually focus pretty heavily on healers, and it's a good chance to get them all leveled up for other events too. The most important ones are Actus, Incissus, Hollin, Vitruvius, and Aleph Null. Yes, they aren't in a lot of alpha battles, but they definitely come in clutch later. The tanks are up next, and I take a look at Revas as always, Toth, Dreer, and Aesoth. And then I'd be working on characters that can gain the most points in this event and are very relevant in other events as well. And here I'm actually just going to suggest Tangida. And so that's a lot of characters to focus on, and maybe even that last list is too overwhelming for you. In that case, just pick 3 or 4 of those characters you think you'd like to play and get them leveled to Gold 1 at least. All the best with the event, and let me know if this helped you unlock Farsight when the event comes around.